I'm looking through the cast. There's second boot.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you've
Like,
got
hey, we got a boot array. Yeah, you're second boot.
if you've got a platoon and you've got I don't know 50 boots, you're like boot, huh? What? Huh? Oh no, boot 3. Damn it. Hey, Internet! It's Paul. It's Matt. The Dork Lords. We are here talking about The Nevers, the season 1 half finale. We'll say episode 6. True. And Paul, the good news is that the show finally slowed down. I complained about the info dump in episode 1. This episode was like, hey, hold my futuristic alien beer. Boom, 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 boom. We commented how they dropped like the name Galanthe in the last episode.
Yes.
This episode was like 100 new terms maybe in like the first half hour. Woo! They threw some stuff at us, but all right.
They did.
We open in a dystopian future where a soldier known as Stripe is fighting on the side of the PDC, the Planetary Defense Coalition, against the Free Lifers.
Yes.
We'll talk about all the specifics here in a second, but basically there's this big fight going on. They're fighting over a Galanthe, probably in London, and it's a giant time-traveling space alien.
Sure.
We then end where the last episode ended. Basically, they kind of just brought us up in time to where the last episode ended. And I had accidentally actually predicted the last scene. I was
you didn't mean to do it.
Why'd that lever drop? And then they showed this thing inflate, and they didn't give us a payoff.
Yeah, I'm only disappointed that you didn't, threaten to eat some terrible candy. Like, if they show us this, I'll eat.
Here go the peeps. Actually, I'll tell you what. I will eventually make that bet again with something, and when I do, there is something that's, I don't even consider it candy. It's so bad. That salt licorice. I don't like licorice. Licorice is still a candy, but that salt licorice, woo!
I don't think I know salt licorice. I know black licorice.
It's like licorice plus. It's not sweet at all. It's like you're just like, oh god, I just ate a mouth of salt. Anyway, so I will perhaps eat one of those as a gambit for predictions. But okay, that aside, that's later. All right,
and then the channel will really take off.
That's right. Watch Matt eat salt licorice. So we end with the payoff of the lever falling and the inflating. It's a prototype dirigible, and it sails across London as Penance is like, effing prototype. And that's where we leave off. And apparently we're going to leave off for quite some time. I think I saw one story that said it might be like 2023 before we
Good Lord.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but it's certainly not going to be next month, episode 7.
It certainly won't. Yeah.
Paul, why don't you just go ahead and summarize the series for us? No, okay. What did you think, good sir, of this episode?
I liked the episode. Yeah, I liked the episode. I like, that we got a better understanding of Amalia True, or at least, Zephyr.
Zephyr, right. Maybe Zephyr's an easier way to describe the various personalities.
Yeah, I liked it. What about you, though? We got even more confirmation of future story.
I know.
Future.
I was like, is it future? Is it aliens?
Make it even more like the Terminator.
It's aliens from the future. That's what it is. Yeah, I'll say that the one saving grace a little bit for it, apparently, is that it seems like it's a one-way trip. And so, in other words, we got a glimpse of a dystopian future, and now they're going to try to change it. But it doesn't seem like they have the option of a redo if they get it wrong.
Okay.
Which is kind of where time travel things, I think, go wrong, is when you just take the stakes out because you're like, well, why didn't you just try again until you got it right? In this case, I don't know. I did roll my eyes a little bit. I was like, okay. But I think at least it's just Here's a person who's in a terrible future who has a chance to change it, and can they do it?
Yeah. And one thing too that might change it, at least we haven't seen anyway. Amalia like saying, "Okay, we need to change this event and this event and this event to make things better."
Right.
You know, it's,
right. The prime minister died on this date. If we save his life, what? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Nothing like that. It's all just okay. What's the situation now? We got to make life better for the people who are touched.
Right. Right. I agree. That's a better thing. Now, one possibility that again, if maybe the only thing that is more tenuous and more treacherous than a time travel story is it's all a simulation story. And they hint at it in this thing. In the future, we see the lab that the Galanthi was helping humanity with.
Right.
They have a bunch of SIM cards, and they've got a whole bunch of Victorian gear. And they're like, I wonder what they were doing with this. And then they happen to end up in Victorian times. One version of that is that she's not actually in Victorian times. She's in a simulation in the future. But I hope that's not it. I hope they were just using the simulation to test their mission, whatever that mission is. And now she's on it. That's where we'll go with that.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah, so there's 4 chapters in this episode, and each one is named essentially for a different name for Zephyr. We've got Stripe, Molly. Chapter 3 is The Mad Woman in the Thames, and Chapter 4 is True. So Stripe is in the future. Molly is basically about Amalia True's past. We see her as the baker's apprentice with a terrible life who ends up committing suicide. Chapter 3, The Mad Woman in the Thames, is right after the event where we see Zephyr in the asylum. And then Chapter 4, True, is from like last week's events where they go and try to communicate with the Galanthi.
And allow me now to apologize to you. I can't remember how vehemently I disagreed with you, but their relationship, her and Sarah,
Yep.
Their relationship begins after the event.
And I had the idea that, perhaps Zephyr realizes what's happening is like, oh, I have to pretend to be normal in this society to get out of here. So let me practice the speech.
It's interesting the way they constructed the story, right? They weren't like straight, well, there's certainly straight cuts, but it's like, okay, I guess she, Amalia, tried to get out in the or talked to the board in order to get out, and they denied her. So then she went. Like,
I think the reason they denied her is because while they were doing the interview, which was going well, they found weapons that she had been gathering in her room. Right? She's like, oh, the sharpened spoons and stuff. She'd hid them under the floorboards, but they found them. And I think that's why she got rejected. It was a little weird.
She looked like she'd been beaten up a little bit, so maybe that's when they grabbed her and threw her into that rubber room.
Right, right.
It's interesting that they didn't show that though. It's all afterwards, and now
correct. It's just a jump
that's
cut.
where Lavinia is in there talking to her.
Right,
and they did it a few times actually, right in the middle of the conversation that she was having with the doctor, Horatio. It's like they're discussing one thing, and then like it sort of cuts to a different time, and they're still talking. So they did a number of interesting sort of editing things to show the passage of time and transitions and all that. You know, it's possible that it's a sim.
A simulation. Please don't be a simulation. That's what I'm asking. In 2023, when we see the resolution of this, please don't be a simulation. In the future, names are sacred. So eventually we find out that Zephyr's name is Zephyr, but that's kind of a big deal for her to reveal that to Penance. It's kind of a trust thing. In the future, at least for the PDC. Now, the Free Lifers, the enemy, if you want to call them that, they're like, all right, here's my name, blah, blah, blah.
That's what I want to call them.
But for the PDC, it seems like they identify themselves by their rank/job. So you've got the knitter. That's probably a name for a medic. Boots. Boot. It seems like he's like an infantry grunt. Zephyr is a stripe. Stripe is probably like a sergeant. something like that. And if you remember back from the message that the Galanthi sends in the song, one of the things are like mentions stripe, mentions the word. So in other words, the Galanthi was talking to Stripe.
Okay.
And then there's someone else
Crescent.
known as Crescent, which I assume would be like a mid-level officer, like a captain or something like that. So that's how they identify themselves.
Looking through the cast, there's second boot.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you've got
hey, we got a boot array. Yeah, you're second boot.
If you've got a platoon and you've got I don't know 50 boots, you're like boot, huh? What? Huh? Oh no, boot 3. Damn it. I see some similarities. If we were talking last week to Joss Whedon. You mentioned how that episode felt like a particular episode called Zeppo of Buffy, which Jackie, my wife, knew about. She's like, "Oh yeah, the Xander episode." But some other Joss Whedon things I think were relevant here. There was the way, we'll talk about this in a second, but the way that the Free Lifers torture Galanthi is very much like Reavers, right? The Reavers and Fireflies string up the people on the ceiling.
That's true.
And that's kind of like, the torture thing. And there's some echoes of Dollhouse in this too, with like a future war where people have multiple personalities, or their personalities can shift. Anyway, I think I could write an essay probably comparing Joss Whedon's Dollhouse. I was waiting for this moment when the doctor, I think his name is Haig, Dr. Haig shows up at the asylum.
Yes.
And he's like, I want to talk to you two, Malady, Sarah, and Zephyr, because you were the touched. And so walks up to Zephyr, is like, hey, I hear you see the future.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, now we'll finally get a really good idea of exactly what's it. And he's like, you saw a light in the sky. Like, come on! What? She was a woman who apparently was already institutionalized at the time of the event, who says she saw a light that no one else saw. Why does that make her part of the touched? I get it. She is, but what? But how do people identify her power set? Anyway, all right.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were talking about Sarah.
Yeah, I'm talking about Sarah. It's just the fact that they continually kind of hide the ball on her actual powers.
Yeah, you're right.
And so in this case, the reason she got identified was that she saw a light in the sky. I'm like, I mean, come on now. Anyway, so whatever. It's a small point.
Well, she's the one who has a memory of the event. No one else does.
Right, but my point being is if she was already kind of like a crazy woman said she saw a light in the sky.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so?
She could have spared Sarah a lot of grief. She's like, we're crazy, right?
Right. This is all a simulation, right? All right, here's my attempt to just kind of describe the situation in the future. Okay, in the future, there were apparently 20 Galanthi.
Yes.
Free Lifers killed almost all of them.
Yes.
The Galanthi sent spores to give people the info needed to use their advanced tech.
And understand them.
Free Lifers are worried that it's the start of an invasion.
Right.
They're going to open up a portal and then there'll be thousands of Galanthi and they'll kill us all.
Yeah.
Millions. So far, though, what we've seen of the Galanthi is they're friendly, they're kind. We see the little video of the Galanthi like playing with the guy, and he's like, I didn't realize they were so playful. But he's this giant, monstrous thing. You're like, oh, God. It's like a Cthulhu creature.
At first, I thought it was like a video communication, but it's probably just a video from the past that they're looking at, right?
Right. They're looking at like the video logs or something from the lab. The Galanthi leaves through a portal, but instead of like jumping back to Galanthi homeworld or whatever, it goes to the past, to Victorian England, where it does the spores. But in so doing, it also takes a dying Zephyr's soul with it. Like she, I think, is committing suicide, like drinking.
It does look.
Extra
that's
coolant.
the impression I got. Yeah, which is interesting is that you could say that's the reason why she was put into
Right.
Amalia's body is because
You got this duality there for sure.
right. Yeah.
See, it appears to have bonded with her dying spirit. Hence the reason it can send her a message in song saying, "Hey, you're not alone, Stripe." And so,
Or knows to do so.
right, a good point. And I was a little confused at first, but I watched the second time. I was like, okay, I had to catch up. But Zephyr had been with a battalion or whatever in Edinburgh, so somewhat
Yes.
near London.
Yes.
Everyone had died except 3 of them, then 2 others had died. She was the last
Yes.
one surviving. She
Yes.
shows up at this place. There were 20 free lifers had dropped in to do harm because of the portal.
Right.
She kills off 12 of them. They're like,
Yes.
oh, there's only 8. She's like, well, I had an hour. So we see how she's a good fighter. And then she plays possum. And that was like, I was like, what is going on? So she drank coolant to drop her body heat.
Right.
So they probably have some kind of like heat sensors or something. So she dropped her body heat so she looked dead. And then she woke up at the right moment and shot some guys. Hence, so she's feeling poorly, which is why she needs the knitter. But I didn't get that at first. I was like, what is it about? Okay, yeah. So that's...
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because I think I was trying to understand it in my second watch too, as if she's like that's some weird characteristic of being,
a stripe.
A stripe, right. Maybe like, the stripes have different body temperatures or something, but no.
Another interesting little parallel there is that she, Zephyr, has, these like PTSD flashbacks to her combat days or something. She's got a few of those. Whereas Amalia has flash forwards. It's kind of interesting that, it's like a version of her personality has come out in the power set that Amalia/Zephyr has. Now she does ask if it's a sim when she gets into the asylum.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when she's there, I think she does make a statement if she's not sure if what she's experiencing is real.
Yeah, she's like, I don't even know if now is now or whatever.
Yeah.
Which just feels like a version of Amalia's
And it's interesting that
power.
they even then established it as this sort of thing that takes her out, and she has to sort of come back in that point, as opposed to just like, I'm just remembering something.
Right. It's like, I did call it somewhat with the touched girl that can levitate. I was like, I'll bet you that levitation power is going to come in handy with Amalia's mission. And sure enough, I believe it wasn't.
I thought it was a different person.
I got the implication that the levitate girl levitated the elevator. Then that's how Amalia gets out of the shower.
I guess it doesn't look like that woman to me. It looks like somebody else that had a different power to sort of like make it work or something.
Okay, perhaps. But that's what I got out of it. I thought it was the same person, and I was like, they levitate.
Tell us in the comments how dumb we are.
Yes. So obviously one of the most important scenes, although it's also the most mysterious, is the kind of what Amalia/Zephyr goes to the Galanthe for, right? She has a conversation. She touches the Galanthe shell, and she gets this flash forward, or actually some of them flashbacks too. It's a series it's a montage of images, which are obviously relevant to the future of the show.
Sure. At the end of it, she's like, "Oh, that one is happening," or that
was pretty good. I like that. It's like, oh, that one's now. She has to fight off the weird-faced guys.
Who was that person that was like, you're going to forget this?
That was Myrtle. The
thought
girl,
it was her,
the
but
girl
I wasn't
that
sure.
speaks.
Different languages.
Yeah, it's her. She just made up differently.
So is it her telling us that she's also someone who...
Could be, although it occurred to me that might just be much like Myrtle interpreted the song, right? She's the one that interpreted... she might just be a conduit for someone else to be speaking.
Okay.
Right? So when she's like, oh, you have to forget this part, it could be a Galanthe speaking through Myrtle, maybe.
I see.
She's got the spore that allows her to communicate with the Galanthe. Anyway, I don't know. But yeah, you're right. One option is that she is also someone who is maybe... Because we do hear, very importantly, in that montage, someone says, like, oh, you think you were the only one who hitched a ride?
Yes.
And I went back and watched it with subtitles because I just wanted to see if maybe it gave away, like, who's saying that. It doesn't, although it interestingly does say, like, the beginning of that sentence, like, you think, or something like that, has man's voice, and then it switches to woman's voice for hitched a ride.
Okay.
So it's like they took either it's somebody who's a man and a woman, both,
right.
or it's two different quotes and they shoved them together. But the final part about hitching a ride is a woman's voice, apparently. Yeah, I had a couple of ideas on that. I'm not going to make a salt licorice bet on it, though. You have to pay off in 3 years or whatever. But, something very important, I think, is just to note that the difference between Penance and Amalia, right? Penance apparently was Penance with all of her memories and personality before she had a spore hit her, and then became Penance now with the knowledge of how to work with electricity.
Yeah.
Amalia, I think, lost her Amalia memories.
I think you're right.
And then maybe I think she got them back when she touched the Galanthe here, because we see some back memories of Molly. But in the moment that she is reborn, obviously Amalia died, I guess, or was drowning. But so what do you call it, the soul or whatever, the personality of Molly was no longer in Zephyr. It was Zephyr inside Molly's body, which is much different than these other folks who just were like, I have that same personality, but now I also can breathe glass or whatever.
Sure.
So there's a very distinct difference there, and it's called out when she's talking to Horatio, who just realizes he's got powers, and she's like, "Yeah, but why wouldn't they send a leader? They always." You think they would create they'd send someone to organize, and and Dodger's like, and that makes her go, oh wait, I'm the leader? Oh crap. Because she is different in that she does.
It's interesting too that both the Doctor and Penance, they're pretty accepting of this future
they are,
world. It's like,
Yeah, right. We see the shot then of Amalia telling Penance everything, and Penance is like, well, it sounds like a terrible future, but all right, we'll just change it. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess the fact that they have powers that they don't understand maybe helps them believe that this is a real thing.
Yeah, it's just more like even conceptually though, how I would think they still should have problems trying to understand what she's telling them.
They're like, we're in. All right, what's next? Yeah, so there's somebody else other than Amalia appears to have kept their personality from the future and has jumped to the past.
Right.
I mean, that's the implication from you think you're the one who gets to ride.
Right.
So potentially, now obviously, could this be somebody we haven't met yet? Although we've met so many people.
We've met quite a lot of people. Yeah.
I would think that it's amongst the cast of folks we've already met is somebody else pretending to be Victorian while actually is from the future and knows everything.
It'd be interesting if it wasn't Myrtle and like she bothered to say, you should forget this. So it's like,
I think it's an antagonistic force. I think it's an antagonistic force as well. I mean, I don't know for a fact, but the way that thing is framed, do you think you're the only one who hitched a ride? It sounds...
Yeah, I could see that.
Like it's a free lifer, for instance, maybe that came through.
Yeah.
Just like Terminator,
I could
you send
see
the other Terminator back to make sure that the first Terminator didn't...
I can see that. That said that, but not necessarily.
Well, if that's the case, I would go with, because I went back and listened to Lavinia's dialogue with the Doctor when they're the Galanthe's pulsing. Right?
Yes,
this is like episode ago.
Yeah,
and her conversation where she's like, we have to destroy it. It's going to corrupt us all.
Yes,
she's basically like way anti-Galanthe and is convinced that it's a terrible thing, even though she
Sure.
doesn't really know what the hell it is.
Correct.
Or does she? And so that's where I think if I were to make a prediction on who that might be the hitch to ride, it could be Lavinia, who jumped into Lavinia's body and is now pretending to be Lavinia Bidlow while secretly a free lifer from the future, trying to destroy the Galanthea here in the
That's
past.
an interesting theory.
So there you go.
I don't know if it's. Well, I think that would be crappy candy word theory.
I think we would forget about the candy even if I made the bet by the time that pays off. So I will not candy this bet. But if you out there have an idea for who else hitched a ride,
yes.
Let us know in the comments.
It's interesting that Zephyr is saying that talking about how she had to abandon penance in order to pursue this mission, and she said, "I left my heart." She said, which you could say is a argument for what you're saying, that perhaps they're moving them closer. I don't see that so much, but one thing they do introduce is the concept of polyamorous relationships.
That's true. That's true. Zephyr apparently had. Yeah, she's like, I was married for 3 years and I never told either of them my name.
Yeah.
Unless she was married twice in that 3 years, but the implication was that she was married to multiple people.
It sounded like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
She could have been more specific and said either time or something.
And I think there was even in her flashback, I think there was a shot of her with like two other
people in the bed.
Yeah,
but that didn't look like from the past, though.
It's hard to know.
Yeah, it's hard to know. It's hard to know. Yeah, but it's like that's one weird thing though about all. During the first part of this series, Horatio was mad at her and trying to keep away because he has a wife, and then the last couple of episodes, there's no problem. There's no problem with sleeping together. It's just
zero problems.
Yeah, it's like this is just fine.
Yeah, that was agreed. There's been a turn there. Like, wait, what about his wife?
The other interesting thing is, I think I had some doubts even after seeing the birds about how Augustus. Augie, would use his powers, but no, those seemed very useful.
Yeah, attack.
Yeah.
Just like Hypnox. He obviously is way in on the cause now too, right? I mean, from the beginning of episode 1 to episode 6, he starts with kind of I don't want to tell people about my powers. I'd rather just keep it about. And when Lavinia's like, "Hey, you shouldn't hang out with them," he's like, "Okay, you're right." And then by episode 6, he's like, "Okay, what do you need? Here, I'll send my birds at them."
Right.
So he's all in a lot of ways.
Yeah, although you could say that maybe perhaps the motivating factor was when the second time that was it Annie or whatever her name was
Mary.
Yeah, when Mary sang, everybody was like, "Oh yeah, we're on board now." So it's possible you could have heard at that point.
Yeah. Okay. We get the idea that maybe Sarah, while she was not 100% with it, wasn't necessarily sinister at the time, and then obviously Amalia does screw her over in order to get her own freedom, essentially.
Presumably something that I guess Haig did to her, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think Haig's takes her away, does his experiments, and makes her further crazy and or sinister.
Right.
And so it's that eventuality that traces its roots back to Amalia kind of screwing her over there in that moment. And so there'll be, there's that little guilt aspect probably that will play out at some point. You made me, kind of thing. But yeah, so it fast-paced show, high concept premise.
Yeah.
And it's set itself up for. It's got a whole cast of interesting characters, and you put yourself in an interesting setting. As long as it's not a simulation, I think
it's all in her mind.
It's all in her mind. As long as that's not it, I think they could actually have a cool show on their hands. So I will be interested to see when this comes back around for episode 7, how that plays out. But anyway, that's my thoughts.
Right.
We're going to be back very soon talking about Loki, which is coming out.
Yes.
And if there's any other shows out there that you guys are interested in hearing about, put them in the comments, and we'll consider them. I'll do this. Yes. So thank you, Paul. As always, good sir. And we'll see everybody next time.